Hey, shalom, shalom. Before I get started with this live lesson, I want to give all praise and glory to our power, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Kodash. Once again, double honors to the apostles, elder bishops of Great Millstone that taught me this truth that rule well. Peace and salutation to the Hope 144 elect. This your brother Kawas coming to you with another lesson in this truth, 24/7, 365. Once again, Israel, this is what I do to get you in the mood. Kwam Yasharallah. Rise, Israel. We got next, baby, any day now, guaranteed. Can't wait to book it. The two most important things you'll ever know as a Hebrew Israelite in this knowledge and this truth is the name of our power, which is Yahweh, and the name of his son, which is Yahweh Shai. Esau Edom, E-S-A-U. Esau Edom is the so-called white man. He's not white, but he's red. He's our red, sinister Hebrew big brother enemy, Esau Edom. We are Jacob of the Bible. This is a very, what's the word I want to use? Weird, different type of topic that I'm doing today on Esau Edom, the so-called white man, our sinister Hebrew big brother. As we all know about the PDF files that's coming out on Esau Edom about what's going on with over there with Ep Splash Steam and what's going on with all these people that's been on these PDF files. I found a few. I've been holding on a few of these videos for a while, and the spirit kind of finally had me bring them out just to show that these devils, these profane, wicked, nasty people has been doing this for a long time, centuries actually. So that's why I titled it, They've Been Doing This for Centuries. And so pray for me as I pray for you that I get through this video. It's going to be several parts to it. Today will be part 1. So just like I said, I'm putting this up raw. Pray for me as I'm praying for you as I get through this. So I'm going to just jump right into it. And Lord willing, it's edifying to the point. It will be provocative, shocking. So PG-13, parental guidance is required. My preface precept is in the book of Titus, chapter 1, verse 16. And it reads, they profess that they know Yahweh, but in works they deny him, being abominable and disobedient, and unto every good work reprobate. That was the book of Titus, chapter 1, verse 16, as my preface precept, and Lord willing, we'll come back to that. I got a video for you. Fair use, fair use, fair use, fair use. Copyright Act of 1976.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Sex is one of the things that's always absolutely enticed us about the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire's was always represented, the place where people did, frightful things, and where, in a sense, there were no sexual rules. Anything went. Everybody had a good time. And there are indeed wonderful stories about the excesses of Roman emperors and their wives. One of everybody's favourites is the story of the Roman Emperor Tiberius, who used to go off to his villa in Capri, where he had a great swimming pool, and he had specially trained little boys who swam underwater while the emperor was swimming and nibbled his genitals. And he called them his.
Okay, so for those that don't know, and for those that do know, disregard that America with a triple K is Rome 2.0. So this is Rome 2.0. Okay, so when she mentioned Rome, the Roman practices, we are Rome 2.0. So those same Roman practices are being practiced today. So let's go back just a smidgen.
But he had a good time. And there are. Sex is one of the things that's always absolutely enticed us about the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire's was always represented, the place where people did, frightful things, and where, in a sense, there were no sexual rules. Anything went. Everybody had a good time. And there are indeed wonderful stories about the excesses of Roman emperors and their wives. One of everybody's favourites is the story of the Roman Emperor Tiberius.
Tiberius, who is an Edomite, okay,
who used to go off to his villa in Capri, where he had a great swimming pool. And he had specially trained little boys who swam underwater while the emperor was swimming and nibbled his genitals.
See that? We'll see these little boys. Isn't that what we're dealing with the PDF file? Sting, files. It's always little boys involved. Esau Edom has always had an infatuation with little boys. Animals, sleeping with animals, little boys. It doesn't matter. If it has a hole, Esau will poke it. So if it's not women, it's little boys. If it's not little boys, it's animals. We're dealing with the devil the Bible speaks of. The abomination that makes desolate, the border of wickedness, the harbinger of death. That's why this man must be taken out of power and put in slavery.
And he called them his little minnows. And it wasn't just the emperors. There was a very famous Roman empress, Messalina, who was the wife of the slightly doddery old emperor Claudius. And she is supposed to have challenged the prostitutes of Rome to a competition to see how many men they could sleep with in a single night. And
now, isn't that happening now? We've seen that. These Edomite women, challenge, how many men you can sleep in one night. I think the record was I don't know if I could better bring it up, but it was ridiculous, like 900 men in one night, something like that. So what comes around goes around, right? Reincarnation is biblical. So these same spirits is back on planet Earth now with the when I'm talking in code, Sting, file, the PDF file. It was coming out now on all these damn devils and their wickedness.
And of course, Messalina beat all the prostitutes.
And so she outdid the prostitutes, but she's supposed to be the queen or the wife of who? What was it? Bear with me.
And it wasn't just the emperors. There's a very famous Roman empress, Messalina, who was the wife of the slightly doddery old emperor Claudius. And she is supposed
the
to
wife of
challenge
the wife of Claudius. Right. Go ahead.
The prostitutes of Rome to a competition to see how many men they could sleep with in a single night. And of course, Messalina beat all the prostitutes. Now, some of this might be going on, some of this, but I suspect that just as those kind of exploits of Roman emperors are our fantasies, can we think of the most amazing things that people can get up to? So also they were the fantasies of Roman writers too, when they kind of invented these stories about people in power. And I think there are very, very important differences between ancient sexual behaviour and our own, but they're not quite so clearly in the level of absolute excess. And I think for a woman, the biggest thing, the biggest difference you'd see is a complete double standard. That's to say, in a ordinary Roman household, the woman was expected to be absolutely faithful to her husband, no sex with anyone else. The husband, it was quite all right for him to sleep with the slaves, male and female, anybody he fancied. There was no such restraint on him. And of course that relates in a way back to the basic anxieties and worries of a very patriarchal community such as Rome, that the man's anxiety was always that his wife's child was really his. So
and how much more now with Esau, Edom, a so-called white man, always worried about his woman getting poked by Jake, you black Latinos and Native Americans. Who was that? What's his name? Salaki Israel. The guy that made he made that movie about Yahweh Shai. It's on the tip of my tongue. Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson had got into a wife with his argument maybe 20 years ago, maybe, and it was recorded. He had got into an argument with his wife about 20 years ago. It was recorded. And you can hear him tell her, she said, "I'm leaving." She said, "I'm leaving you." He said, "Go ahead, get out. And I hope you get gang banged by a lot of black men or black niggers or something like that. I hope you get gang raped by some niggers." So that's one of Esau's weaknesses or pet peeves or Achilles heel that he worries about, is that Jake is poking his woman. That's one of the reasons why he took away our watermelon. Allowed now society, men have tight pants on. There's food, there's drugs inside the food that make your rod small, and the beer. That's why beer makes your, it was a movie with Michael J. White named Black Dynamite, where the movie was about a beer called Anaconda beer, which would be related to malt liquor. Anaconda beer, and they said Anaconda beer would give you a small rod. There's other type of, even at the Planned Parenthood facilities that you have here in America, the vegetables and the fruits that they give you has drugs in it or things in it that takes away your sexual appetite. So the white man has always been intimidated by the male prowess, the what's the word? I'm a little lost for words right there, though. Just pray for me. The alpha male sexual appetite, the bigness of our rod of the so-called black man. So he's always been wanting to. That's why he would cut our rods off. He always wanted to get our rods small, so he wouldn't have to worry about his women getting poked by a well-endowed Israelite man. So this has always been part of Esau Edom's weakness of toward us and his women. So let's read that again. Let's listen to that again. Listen to this.
Of a very patriarchal community such as Rome, that the man's anxiety was always
that's the word I'm looking for. Esau's anxiety, not the male anxiety, the male Edomite anxiety is his woman going to get poked by a Israelite man with a big rod, or his daughter.
His wife's child was really his. So you make sure that your wife sleeps with nobody else. But as for you, it really doesn't matter. And I think one of the bleakest places actually that you can go to in the whole of the Roman world now is the one surviving purpose-built brothel in Pompeii.
So we have brothels now. Esau Edom has always had brothels. We never had a brothel where Israelite men would go and poke Israelite women. We never had that because we wanted our women to have one man and our women to be virgins. Esau, Edom, so-called white man, don't give a damn how many women his woman had. That's why the word queen. The word queen, if you look up in the etymology, Quean, this is for those that do not know this. Etymon, bear with me, right here. If you look up the word queen, queen means whore. But how many of our women call themselves queen? So queen, Middle English queen, a woman, a low-born woman, from Old English queen, woman, also female serf, hussy. My mom used to say that back in the day. You hussy. They don't use that no more. A hussy, a prostitute. You see? So the word queen means whore, hussy, prostitute. And our women, the Negro woman, the Latino woman, the Native American woman, call herself a queen. So she's calling herself a whore. So the more you call yourself a queen, the more that spirit comes on you to be a whore, a prostitute, an adulteress, being promiscuous. So Esau Edom never had a problem with his women being promiscuous because the king, so-called white man Esau in Rome, the king, his women, he would call his women queens, who were prostitute whores, very promiscuous, right? So brothels, we never had a brothel in our kingdom. We would burn the damn brothel down, point blank, period.
Is the one surviving purpose-built brothel in Pompeii. And it's certainly a brothel. There's absolutely no mistaking it. You walk into the front door and there's 5 little cubicles, narrow, dark, just a single bed in them, sort of wide single bed, and one lavatory at the back, and very crude but erotic paintings all over the walls. And it's the biggest tourist attraction actually now in Pompeii, and people go in and they tend to think of the clients coming here and visiting, choosing which girl to have, and there's lots of graffiti on the walls explaining in quite graphic detail what they got up to, what kind of good time they had. But I go in and I think, gosh, some people were working here. The working girls were spending their life tending to the sexual freedom, allowing the sexual freedom of the male population while they lived in what was essentially a cupboard, dark, gloomy cupboard. I think it's quite an eye-opener when it comes to ancient sexual norms, which is a bit more down to earth than the sexual exploits of Roman emperors and their wives.
Right. And remember, sexual diseases was not around when Esau Edom, when Esau came over here on the ships, when what's his name? Not Cristobal Colon. When he came over here on the cargoes, when he came over on the ships, there were no diseases. The Gadites did not have any diseases. Issachar did not have any diseases. Manasseh did not have any diseases. Reuben, we were not dealing with diseases. And if there was some type of disease, you would put, in our custom, we would have to put you to death because we don't want that disease to spread across society. So it wasn't any diseases. But when the so-called white man came to America, he brought the disease with him. I told you there's a story about the cargo slave ships that they were so nasty and stinky from feces and vomit and things of that nature that the ship would be 2 weeks away from docking and they could smell it. So what's that? I don't know, several hundred miles away or more, 2 weeks away from docking, but the wind would blow onshore and they would smell the ship coming 2 weeks away. That's how stinky and funky the ships were. If you ever watched the old slave movies on a cargo slave ships, you would see Esau would have a scarf around his head, around his face, because to keep the smell out. So this man can live in filth, nastiness. He's Esau Edom, a so-called white man. the profane nastiness of the Bible, right? Real quick, let me get this precept right here. Job 15 verse 16. How much more abominable and filthy is man, the so-called white man, Esau Edom, which drinketh iniquity like water. There's a scripture that says he eats the bread of adversity. What does the bread of adversity taste like? What does the water of iniquity taste like? We would never know because we're Israelites. But this man drinks iniquity like water. And how much more abominable and filthy is man, Esau Edom, the so-called white man, how much more abominable and filthy is man, which drinketh iniquity like water. Here's another video. Fair use, fair use, fair use, fair use. Copyright Act of 1976.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Okay, this video is kind of long, so we're going to jump around a little bit, you know, for the sake of time.
In the annals of human history, few names evoke such visceral revulsion as that of Gaius Julius Caesar, Augustus Germanicus, better known to posterity as Caligula. What began as Rome's great hope in 37 CE descended into a nightmare that would scar the empire's collective memory for centuries. The young emperor who once promised renewal and prosperity transformed into a monster whose depravity knew no bounds, turning the imperial palace into a theater of systematic degradation that would make even the most hardened historian pause in disbelief. The transformation was as sudden as it was complete. Where once stood a beloved prince who reduced taxes and freed political prisoners, there emerged a tyrant who viewed human dignity as nothing more than kindling for his twisted desires. Ancient sources speak in hushed tones of midnight processions where young patricians disappeared into palace chambers, never to emerge unchanged. Suetonius, writing decades later, could barely bring himself to record the full extent of what transpired behind those marble walls. Yet what he did document paints a picture of calculated cruelty that defies comprehension. Rome had seen its share of excess before Caligula. The city that conquered the known world was no stranger to violence or decadence. Yet what set this emperor apart was not merely his personal depravity, but his systematic transformation of state machinery into an instrument of sexual humiliation. Where previous rulers might have indulged their vices in private, Caligula made degradation a public spectacle, forcing the Senate itself to bear witness to acts that violated every sacred boundary of Roman society. The historical record presents us with a paradox. How could a civilization that prided itself on law and order produce such unbridled chaos? How could senators who had faced down Hannibal's elephants cower before a single man's madness? The answer lies not in individual weakness, but in the terrifying efficiency with which Caligula weaponized shame itself. He understood that to break...
Now you see how he weaponized shit. It said he weaponized shame itself. And that's what that they're dealing with now. What's it called? A humiliation ritual. So he perfected the what does it say? Bear with me. Let's read that again. Let's do that again.
Their vices in private, Caligula made degradation a public spectacle, forcing...
Degrading you, a public festival, humiliation ritual. So that goes back centuries ago. This is in this man's nature, in his history.
The Senate itself to bear witness to acts that violated every sacred boundary of Roman society. The historical record presents us with a paradox. How could a civilization that prided itself on law and order produce such unbridled chaos?
So how much more America with a triple K, which is Rome 2.0, you're supposed to be a law and order Christian world, right? State, but you're the most wickedest country of all time.
How could senators who had faced down Hannibal's elephants cower before a single man's madness? The answer lies not in individual weakness, but in the terrifying efficiency with which Caligula weaponized shame itself.
He weaponized shame. So how much more Epstein. I got to get a new name for him. Franken Epstein. How much more him? Weaponize shame. Weaponize degrading you, humiliation rituals. And then they get files on you, tape on you, history on you, so you can't go back and say, so that's this man has been doing this for centuries. Let's keep going.
He understood that to break a people, one need not always use force. Sometimes forcing them to participate in their own humiliation proved far more effective.
And that's Esau loves that. That's what's happening now. How many humiliation rituals have we seen with our Negro celebrities? How much more humiliation rituals have you seen with Edomite celebrities? How much more humiliation, well, I wouldn't say humiliation, but degrading things we heard about Franken Epstein with all the senators and mayors and governors and presidents and billionaire bankers and things of that nature that went on over in that island.
Archaeological evidence from the period reveals a city held in the grip of fear. Graffiti hastily scratched on alley walls speaks of unspeakable acts witnessed but never openly discussed. Official records, normally meticulous in their detail, become curiously vague when describing certain palace ceremonies. It's as if the very act of recording these events was too dangerous, the truth too terrible to commit to permanent record.
Right. That's why they, what did they do? They blocked out, what is it called? Redacted all these names, all these files. Let's read that again. So it's the same thing. Same thing going on in America with a triple K. What did he just say? Listen to this.
He hastily scratched on alley walls speaks of unspeakable acts witnessed.
Inside them PDF files, it talks about unspeakable acts, right? That's why they redacted it, right?
But never openly discussed.
How much more now?
Official records, normally meticulous in their detail, become curiously vague when describing certain palace ceremonies.
Right. How much more? There's a Pam Bondi that just was in front of the Senate last week. She played down all that. How much more now? The leader of the DOJ, she played it down. Try to sweep it under the rug.
It's as if the very act of recording these events was too dangerous, the truth too terrible to commit to permanent record. Yet fragments survive, preserved by accident or hidden by brave souls who believed future generations needed to know what transpired. Modern historians approach this period with a mixture of fascination and horror. The challenge lies in separating fact from propaganda, as many accounts.
That's what they're doing. They're separating fact from propaganda. That's what Esau Edom do. That's what the news media do. They separate facts from propaganda.
Were written after Caligula's assassination by those eager to justify his murder. Yet when multiple independent sources corroborate the same horrific details, when archaeological evidence supports written testimony, we must confront the uncomfortable truth that sometimes history's monsters are not exaggerations, but understatements of reality. The question that...
How much more now? Franken Epstein, DJT, Bezos, Zuckerberg, Klaus Schwab, Noah Urari, all these billionaire bankers, all these billionaires, all these celebrities are nasty, wicked monsters that must be put to death, must be destroyed via ICBM thermonuclear missile hellfire during World War III, as well as put to death during Jacob's Trouble.
Haunts us across the centuries is not whether these events occurred, but how they were allowed to continue. Rome was not a helpless city. It was the center of an empire with legions at its command. Yet for 4 years, from 37 to 41 CE, the most powerful men in the known world submitted to degradations that would have been unthinkable under any other circumstances.
How much more now? The same people: Snoop Dogg, Prince, Michael Jackson, Denzel Washington, Kevin Hart, all of them, Cat Williams too, all of them, all of them, all of them are subject of degradation. How much more the Edomite ones? The billionaire bankers: Klaus Schwab, Noah Urari, Zuckerberg, Bezos, Elon Tusk, Bill Gates, Oprah, all of them. Mel Gibson, Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise, all of them.
This speaks to something deeper than mere fear of death. It reveals how systematic abuse can paralyze entire societies.
Systematic abuse has paralyzed the entertainment world, the media world. They're afraid. So you might as well keep going, because if I stop, I'm gonna get put to death, silenced, or lose all my money.
As we delve into this dark chapter of human history, we must remember that we examine it not for sensationalism, but for understanding. The victims of Caligula's reign.
That's what we're doing. We're understanding what's going on. Now we see. See, one thing, like my elder Mawatazak said at camp last week, GMS Los Angeles, he said, before the Most High, that's shameful spewing. Let's grab that real quick. Shameful. Before the Most High take down a nation, he always exposes them. Habakkuk 2, verse 16. Before the Most High take a nation down, he always exposes its leaders and its deep, darkest secrets. How much more now with the Frankenstein files, the PDF files. Habakkuk 2, verse 16. You are filled with shame for glory, Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, America with a triple K, Rome 2.0. You are filled with shame for glory. So wait a minute, listen to that. You are filled with shame for glory. So that goes back to this right here, that Job 15 and 16. How much more abominable and filthy is man which drinketh iniquity like water, the so-called white man. So Job 15 and 16 backs up this Habakkuk 2, verse 16. You are filled with shame for glory. Drink you also, and let your foreskin be uncovered. That's what's happening. Esau, Edom, foreskin is being uncovered. The cup of the Lord Yahweh's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on your glory. So everyone looks at America with a triple K as nasty, filthy, as well as the land of Israel. Nasty, filthy, shameful, right? Let's get back to the video. So once again, before the Most High before he takes down a kingdom, he exposes its deep, darkest secrets of its leaders. How much more now in America with a triple K, Rome 2.0 in 2026?
Were real people with real families whose suffering echoed.
Bear with me. Let me see brothers on the comment board. Let me make sure I got this where I can open it up. Yeah, okay, get Khan. There it is. Khan. Okay, hey, Shalom, King Zion, Yahbashim Shabrakatah, GMS Alabama. Subscribe and be edified. Shalom, Malak, Yahbashim Shabrakatah. Yep, that's the classic. Hebrews 12 and 16. That's the classic.
Goes across 2 millennia. Their stories deserve to be told with both honesty and respect, acknowledging the full horror of what occurred while never losing sight of their humanity. This documentary will trace the descent from hope to horror, examining how absolute power corrupted absolutely.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's what's happening with Zuckerberg, Bezos, DJT, Klaus Schwab, Noah Urari, Elon Tusk, Bill Gates of hell, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that I'm gonna move to the 11-minute mark of this video. It's a 53-minute video. I'm gonna move to 11-minute mark. Let's do this real quick. Check this out.
extent of documentation speaks to something even more sinister than the acts themselves. By forcing his administrators to record these violations in the same matter-of-fact tone used for tax records or military dispatches, Caligula normalized the unthinkable. Rape became routine, incest administrative, and human dignity nothing more than an entry in a ledger.
Okay, hold on. Rape became what? Let's hear that again. What?
Which survived the later purges revealed held Roman society together. The extent of documentation speaks to something even more sinister than the acts themselves. By forcing his administrators to record these violations in the same matter-of-fact tone used for tax records or military dispatches, Caligula normalized the unthinkable. Rape became routine.
Rape became routine. How much more with the Frankenstein Island, the PDF files? Rape became routine. How much more now?
Incest, administrative, and human.
Incest and administrative. In other words, sleeping with your sisters and brothers, that's just part of it. That was legal, lawful.
Human dignity, nothing more than an entry in a ledger. The very language of governance was corrupted to serve his twisted purposes.
And that's what's happening now. Their twisted purposes. To satisfy their twisted purposes.
The most horrific aspects of Caligula's reign was his treatment of children. Roman society, for all its faults, generally protected the innocence of youth.
Now, what's happening now with all these children being missing? You know, that Esau loved children, man. Something about children and innocence of children. This damn devil loves it. The adrenochrome, because I got I'm gonna show it to you. I'm gonna get to it, Lord willing. Check this out.
Children of citizens were considered sacred, their virtue inviolate until they came of age. Caligula shattered this taboo with deliberate cruelty. He established what he called training programs, where young boys and girls would be educated in ways that would prepare them to serve in his court.
How much more? Frankenstein files. Frankenstein. The PDF file. They were doing the same thing on that island. Training little boys and girls.
The details of these programs, preserved in fragmentary accounts by horrified witnesses, reveal a systematic approach to child abuse that defies comprehension.
Wow.
Children as young as 7 were subjected to gradual conditioning that broke down their natural boundaries and prepared them for worse violations to come. Those who resisted faced punishments designed not just to hurt, but to humiliate, often carried out in front of their parents, who were forced to watch in silence.
Now we know where they got that from during slavery. You know, they would rape us in front of everyone in slavery. They would butt break us, and everyone. The biggest it was a butt break, I believe. They would do that in front of everybody to prove a point. So this is part of. He's been doing this for centuries.
Noble families found themselves in an impossible position. To send their children to the palace when summoned meant subjecting them to certain abuse. To refuse meant death for the entire family line. Some attempted to send their children away to distant provinces, only to find that Caligula's reach extended throughout the empire. Others tried bribing palace officials to have their children's names removed from the lists. But such attempts often backfired when the emperor learned of them. The psychological torture extended beyond the physical acts themselves. Caligula delighted in forcing parents to praise him for the honor of having their children serve in his palace.
Okay, now I'm going to move on to the 17th minute. Bear with me. Bear with me. Let me grab a scripture real quick. Let's go to Psalms 53. Psalms 53, verse 1. Psalms 53, verse 1 through 3. It says, a psalm of David, the fool has said in his heart, there is no power, there is no God, right? Corrupt are they, and how much more our people has become as corrupt as Esau Edom. Corrupt are they and have done abominable iniquity. That's what these Frankenstein files is proving, that Esau Edom is corrupt and have done abominable iniquity. There is none that doeth good. There is no good Edomite. There is no good Edomite or Amalekite. There is no good Edomite nor no good Amalekite. Psalms 53:2. Yahweh looked down from heaven upon the children of men to see if there were any that did understand, that did seek Yahweh. Third verse. Every one of them is gone back. Psalms 53:3. They are altogether become filthy under Esau Edom, the so-called white man's rulership. We have all become filthy. However, we set ourselves apart, being sanctified by our high holy days, our dietary law, who we call on, our lifestyle, right, who we worship. But all of America is filthy. We've all had swine's flesh in our bloodstream. We've all had iodine in our blood. We have all had shrimp, Slocky, I'm a little excited. We've all had pork in our teeth. We've all had iodine in our blood from shrimp, crab, and lobster. We've all committed adultery. We've all shaved our beard, things of that nature. So Esau Edom has made everyone filthy. That's why we got washed by the word when we got into this truth. So now we're different. We're set apart. We are in the world, but we're not of the world. But under Esau Edom's rulership, everyone had become filthy. There is none that doeth good of the Edomites, no, not one. Let me get one more before I get to that video. Ezekiel 44:23. And this is what we're doing, the men of great millstone and the men of like doctrine. Ezekiel 44:23. And they shall teach my people the difference between the holy and profane. Swine's flesh is profane. Crab, shrimp, lobster is profane. Smoking heroin-based, seedless marijuana recreationally is profane. Committing adultery is profane. Calling on Caesar Borgia cheese and rice is profane. And cause them to discern between the clean and the unclean. You see? Back to the video. Let me go to the 17th minute mark.
Took forms that horrified traditional Romans. Temple prostitution, unknown in Roman religion, was introduced as a form of devotion to the divine emperor. Vestal virgins, whose chastity was considered essential to Rome's prosperity, were subjected to the emperor's advances, destroying a tradition that had endured for centuries.
How much more during slavery? He would always take our daughters that were 12, 13 after they had a monthly and sleep with them first. So he was doing that back then. The vestal virgins, right?
Caligula's sexual practices extended beyond mere personal gratification to become tools of political control. He would force senators to offer their wives to him as proof of loyalty, then use these encounters to blackmail them into supporting his increasingly erratic policies. Those who refused found their wives accused of adultery, a charge that carried severe penalties under Roman law. The bitter irony was not lost on anyone. The emperor, who violated every marriage in Rome, used the sanctity of marriage as a weapon against those who opposed him. The establishment of what Caligula called his pleasure fleet represented another innovation in institutionalized depravity. He commissioned a series of massive floating platforms on the Bay of Naples, equipped with every conceivable apparatus for sexual gratification. These floating palaces became the sites of orgies that lasted for days, where the boundary between participant and victim completely dissolved. Attendance was mandatory for those summoned, and the Coast Guard was instructed to prevent anyone from leaving until the emperor gave permission.
How much more Frankenstein Island? When you got the invite to go to Frankenstein Island, you had to go. You hear what he just said? You had let's do what he just said. Listen to this. So this is part of their custom. Check this out.
His increasingly erratic policies. Those who refused found their wives accused of adultery, a charge that carried severe penalties for depravities. He declared himself a living god and demanded work. Those who refused found their wives Romans. Temple prostitution, unknown in Roman religion, was introduced as a form of devotion to the divine emperor. Vestal virgins, whose chastity was considered essential to Rome's prosperity, were subjected to the emperor's advances, destroying a tradition that had endured for centuries. Caligula's sexual practices extended beyond mere personal gratification to become tools of political control. He would force senators to offer their wives to him as proof of loyalty, then use these encounters to blackmail them into supporting his increasingly erratic policies.
How much more now? Same thing. Everybody in that Senate, in the U.S. Congress, they all poking each other.
Those who refused found their...
Oh, just like in the entertainment field. Everybody poking everybody. That's just how it is. That's part of it. It's a part of the club.
Wives accused of adultery, a charge that carried severe penalties under Roman law. The bitter irony was not lost on anyone. The emperor, who violated every marriage in Rome, used the sanctity of marriage as a weapon against those who opposed him. The establishment of what Caligula called his pleasure fleet represented another innovation in institutionalized depravity. He commissioned a series of massive floating platforms on the Bay of Naples, equipped with every conceivable apparatus for sexual gratification. These floating palaces became the sites of orgies that lasted for days, where the boundary between participant and victim completely dissolved. Attendance was mandatory for those summoned,
for those that were summoned. That Epstein list. When you get that invite to the Epstein or P Nasty, you know what I'm saying? That nigga P Diddy, you get that invite, you had to go.
Coast Guard was instructed to prevent anyone from leaving until the emperor gave permission.
That they take your phone, you know, and it's on. We got you. How much more that movie Blink Twice?
The economic impact of Caligula's sexual excesses cannot be overlooked. The resources devoted to satisfying his desires drained the imperial treasury at an alarming rate. Exotic slaves trained in specific sexual techniques commanded prices that would have funded entire military campaigns. The construction of specialized furniture and devices for his pleasure chambers employed hundreds of craftsmen who might...
How much more, you know, you can buy those sexual couches that got, they're shaped in a certain way where you can bend your woman over, you know, you can sit a certain way, she can sit on you. So that all comes from Rome. We've all seen those things before, right?
Might otherwise have been building infrastructure for the empire. Rome's wealth was literally being consumed by its emperor's insatiable appetites. Beyond...
Now, I think what we're looking at is that's a little girl and her mama's cutting her hair so she'll look like a boy. I don't know. That's what I think.
And the direct financial costs, the corruption of Rome's administrative systems created inefficiencies that would plague the empire for generations. Officials who should have been governing provinces were instead managing the emperor's sexual calendar. Military officers who should have been defending frontiers found themselves procuring victims for imperial orgies. The machinery of empire, built over centuries of disciplined expansion, was being retrofitted to serve one man's perversions. The international ramifications of Caligula's behavior extended far beyond Rome's borders. Foreign ambassadors reported back to their rulers about the shocking scenes they witnessed at the imperial court. Some kingdoms began to question whether alliance with Rome was worth the risk of exposing their own nobles to such degradation.
How much more now? Nobody want to deal with America. It's too wicked. You know, Russia definitely don't want to deal with us. Putin said a few years ago at the winter, I think the Winter Olympics was in Russia a few years back, and a lot of the Winter Olympic ski team and stuff, athletes, they were homosexuals and gay and lesbians. And they asked Putin about that because the Olympics was in Russia, and they asked Putin about it. And Putin said, okay, y'all can do whatever y'all want, live however y'all want, but don't bring that over here and expose that to our children. So nobody want to be part of America with a triple K wickedness, Rome 2.0's wickedness and nastiness and perversion and debauchery and decadence.
Others saw opportunity in Rome's distraction, planning invasions and rebellions while the emperor was occupied with his pleasures. One particularly damaging incident involved the delegation from Parthia, Rome's great eastern rival. The ambassadors were subjected to a dinner where Caligula forced Roman matrons to serve naked and perform sexual acts with slaves for entertainment. When the shocked Parthians protested this breach of diplomatic protocol, Caligula threatened to have them castrated and sent back as a gift to their king.
Always want to castrate somebody. Always want to cut off somebody's rod. That's part of Esau's MO. Now we get it, right? Now we know.
The incident nearly provoked a war that Rome, in its distracted state, was ill-prepared to fight. The treatment of Rome's provincial subjects under Caligula's rule reflected the same patterns of sexual exploitation seen in the capital. Governors appointed by the emperor understood that their positions depended on facilitating his desires when he traveled. They would round up the most attractive young people in their provinces as tribute for imperial visits. Those who failed to provide sufficiently pleasing offerings found themselves recalled and executed for imagined crimes. In one documented case from Syria, an entire village was depopulated of its youth when Caligula announced a planned visit. Parents who tried to hide their children were crucified along the roads as a warning to others. The governor, eager to curry favor, established collection points where families were required to present their children for inspection. Those selected were taken to
Didn't it inspect us when we got off the boat? That movie, slack it, man. Damn, what's it called? Uncle Tom's. Damn, I forgot. Slack Israel. It's one of them days. I'm a little lost for words today. I'm not as sharp as I want to be, but Uncle Tom's Cabin or some shit where they would inspect us. Look at, squeeze our women's breasts up and open their leg, look inside their vagina, turn around, look inside their butt crack. Men lift up their balls, look in their butt crack. Same thing back then. Same thing. Man, what's the name of that movie? It'll come to me in a minute. I ain't brought it out in a while.
special camps where they were prepared for the emperor's arrival. Many never returned. The military, traditionally the most disciplined element of Roman society, was not immune to Caligula's corrupting influence. He would visit legionary camps and demand that the soldiers provide him with their youngest and most attractive recruits. Military discipline based on strict hierarchies and mutual respect broke down when soldiers saw their officers pimping out their own men to maintain the emperor's favor. Some units experienced near mutinies as soldiers refused to subject their comrades to such treatment. The Praetorian Guard, responsible for the emperor's safety, found themselves in the most compromised position of all. These elite soldiers were forced to stand watch, while their emperor engaged in acts that violated every code they had sworn to uphold. Some guards later reported that the hardest part of their service was not facing death in battle, but maintaining their composure while witnessing the systematic degradation of Roman citizens they were supposed to protect. The psychological impact on...
A little bit more, and I'm gonna get to another video, because this is a 53-minute video, and that's why I'm gonna do a part 2 to it. I'm not gonna do all of it. I'm gonna stop in about a minute or two, and then I'm gonna go to another video.
Those forced to participate in or witness Caligula's excesses created a traumatized generation. Physicians of the period reported unprecedented levels of what they called melancholia among the noble classes. Suicide rates soared as individuals chose death over continued humiliation. Some entire families took poison together rather than submit to another summons to the palace. The social fabric of Rome was not merely strained, it was being systematically shredded, Women, in particular, faced impossible choices under Caligula's reign. Roman matrons who had been raised to embody virtue and dignity found themselves reduced to sexual objects for the emperor's amusement. Those who tried to maintain their honor faced not only personal consequences, but the destruction of their families. Many developed elaborate strategies to avoid attracting attention, deliberately disfiguring themselves or feigning illness to escape notice. The few women who found themselves in positions of relative safety, often those who had already been thoroughly degraded and thus held no further interest for the emperor, formed secret networks to protect others. They would warn families when their names appeared on palace lists, help young women escape the city, and provide refuge for those who had survived palace ordeals. These networks, operating in constant fear of discovery, represented one of the few points of light in an otherwise dark period.
All right. Now, that's, like I said, it's a 53-minute video. I just at the 24-minute mark, so I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to get to something else. So let's get another precept real quick. Let's go to, before I get to the other video, let's go to Isaiah 32. Isaiah 32, verse 5 through 8. Isaiah 32, verse 5 through 8. The vile person shall be no more called liberal. Who's the vile person? Esau, Edom, a so-called white man. The devil the Bible speaks of. DJT, Frankenstein. I'm talking in code. Kill Gates of Hell, Zuckerberg, Bezos, right? The vile person shall no more be called liberal. See, righteous. You're not righteous, Esau. You're the vile person. Nor the churl, which is also vile, wicked, said to be bountiful. You're not bountiful. You're unbountiful. You're wicked. You're the harbinger of death, the border of wickedness, the abomination that makes desolate. That's why you must be put to death. Isaiah 32 and 6. For the vile person, Esau, Edom, will speak valiantly. That's his spirit, to speak valiantly. And his heart will work iniquity. Wait a minute. I thought you was a Christian nation. But in your heart, you work iniquity, continual sin, right? Concupiscence, to practice hypocrisy. You're a hypocrite, Esau, Edom. You're two-faced. And to utter error against the Lord Yahweh. And that lifestyle that you live, the Frankenstein, the PDF files, P. Diddy, all these, that's utter error against the Lord Yahweh. To make empty the soul of the hungry. These innocent Israelite children. That's the hungry, the soul of the hungry. To make empty the soul of the hungry through these practices, through these lifestyle, through this hypocrisy, through this iniquity, through his vileness, through his churlism. And he will cause the drink of the thirsty to it's happening now with all these children being missing. Isaiah 32 and 7. The instruments of the churl wicked are evil. I mean, the way he does it, train a baby, spank a baby. Well, the next video is going to get into it, but you spank the baby, and the baby has to have fear and anxiety for you to get the best in the blood. Now, the next video is going to explain that. So those are instruments of the churl, different type of sexual devices, training them to do explicit things. Those are the instruments of the churl, which are evil. Esau, Edom is the churl. His devices, remember the word device also goes into his thoughts. Just the way he thinks. His devices, his thoughts, his devices, wicked devices, thoughts to destroy the poor with lying words, even when the needy speaketh right. Isaiah 32 and 8. But the liberal, the righteous, deviseth liberal things. We're the liberal, the Israelites, the hopeful elect men, the 1/3 men, women, and children, and Lord willing, part of that number. And by liberal things shall he stand. And that's what we do. We stand on the liberal things. Unlike Esau, Edom, a so-called white man, That's why the world is in need of new management. Okay, let's get to this other video. Fair use, fair use, fair use, fair use. Copyright Act of 1976.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Now, the movie was called Goodbye, Uncle Tom, was the movie I'm talking about. All right, now check this video out.
You look at the old footage, let me welcome you, John, and say, you look at the old footage, you're one of those people that looked older when you were young. Now you look a little young that you're older. I don't know how you did it.
It's the fountain of youth, Harry, and it's good to be with you. And by the way, given that introduction, I have to say I'd rather be in this seat than Paul Manafort's seat right now.
This is my fourth time.
That's old boy from Shark Tank. That's old boy from Shark Tank. He said, this is my fourth time. Listen to this.
In Paul Manafort's seat right now.
This is my fourth time. I come here every time I come to Dubai. Anytime I come to the UAE, I make sure I take at least half a day to come here. The great thing about the procedure here is you can measure it almost immediately in how you feel. You start to feel really good, and it doesn't take a long time. Every time I come, I go through an EBO process, which is where they drain almost 4.5 liters of your blood through a dialysis process, clean it, ozonate it, oxygenate it, and then inject 50 billion exosomes, which go into your bloodstream and for the next 4 months reduce inflation. You feel like $1 million when you walk out of it.
Adrenochrome, that's not true. It's C9H9NO3. This is a chemical compound that is absolutely listed. It's been around in modern science since the 1930s. You can actually, there's a synthetic form and there's a regular natural form, which is caused by torturing little kids to get their adrenaline up, essentially, and then extracting it from them. When you sit and meet, and so I brought this up a few years ago, and all of a sudden I was attacked by every media. Look it up. It's there. They absolutely went after me. And the next day, I never heard from my agency for 14 months. My lawyers let me go. My agency never called me after that, and essentially I was done.
Let me say that although pedophilia, which says child love, has nothing to do with the abuse of children, these children are not just kidnapped and in some cases bred by families as a cash crop. We have people in the United States of America that breed children in order to sell them. And when they are sold, they come without birth certificates, which means it's easier to kill them and have no one ask where they are. We're also importing children by the plane load. Again, children who have no documentation. It's not just child slavery or child abuse, it's also child torture, because you have adrenalized blood. You have the whole blood drinking ceremony of the satanic world. It's also the use of children for harvesting body organs. We'll have the Falun Gong testimony tomorrow.
Controversial new treatment that may hold promise, but at a price.
It does appear to reverse the aging process.
Dr. Jesse Karmazin is talking about transfusions with the young blood from teenagers, and he says it just may turn back the hands of time. That blood is going to patients over 35 as part of a clinical trial called Ambrosia, where subjects paid $8,000 to get the rich growth factors found in the platelets in blood's plasma.
There's pretty much people from most states, people from overseas, from Europe and Australia.
There have not been any published results, but the intriguing concept still found its way into pop culture.
It's my transfusion associate.
Dr. Karmazin says patients who have had it say they feel amazing, and he has seen evidence of reversing the aging process in rats.
Their brains are younger, hearts, their hair, If it was gray, it turns dark again.
Hello everyone, this is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. What I'm going to share with you today is a architecture for looking at adrenochrome. You're going to get from an MIT PhD in biological engineering. I'm going to arm you now with some chemistry. So listen very carefully. Adrenochrome, what is it? So adrenochrome is a stable oxidation product of adrenaline. That's what an in vitro study showed. The chemical structure, you notice, is very different. Adrenaline looked like this. It had this benzene ring with the OH. Adrenochrome looks like this. You notice this benzene ring is folded on itself and you get this. Now, this is what I want everyone to focus on. You may want to take notes. You're welcome to take a screenshot of this. So the question I started asking is, could I understand this in the context of the observations people have been reporting? That they're taking a child, frightening it, which means adrenaline, and then putting it under such stress that it creates adrenochrome. Because as I understand, and the people who know more about this than I do, is that the adrenochrome is being created by taking these kids, scaring them, fight or flight, and then torturing them. And that puts the body into a state that they create adrenochrome. So I wanted to actually explain this. And I believe I have probably the first explanation of how this is going on at the molecular systems level. You won't get this, by the way, from Joe Kennedy or Robbie Kennedy or Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton may actually know about this. What's going on here? Adrenaline. When we did our systems analysis of the research, adrenaline is released in response to a stressful, exciting, dangerous, or threatening situation. So here is the bobcat chasing that mouse. It hasn't caught him yet, but it's chasing it. This is when that mouse, let's say, I don't know what they're potentially doing to these kids. If they're scaring those kids and chasing them around, scaring the hell out of them, it's like the bobcat chasing the mice. And this starts producing adrenaline. It's increased synthesis of adrenaline. And there's enough paper saying adrenaline responds to stress. So we know under that kind of stress, adrenaline is created. Now, what I found fascinating as I did research since people wrote to me is that oxidative stress, which is different than this kind of stress, is highly correlated with anxiety. Anxiety causes an accumulation of reactive oxygen species such as O2-. So this was one paper that came out which says oxidative stress and anxiety. This was a role of oxidative stress and anxiety disorder. So let me tell you what this is like. To put it simply, you need stress and anxiety to create adrenochrome. If you're going to do this to an animal, be it a child or lab rat, you have to put it under extreme stress and anxiety. And that's what we're talking about. With just stress, you don't get it. You got to have both. So this is what I would call extreme torture. Because if you just have stress, you're not going to get adrenochrome. You have to have the stress and the anxiety. Everyone getting this? Everyone clear on this? So this is the example I'd like you to do. The lion is chasing the zebra. That's probably when adrenaline is being released. It hasn't got him yet. It's chasing him. But what about when this incident is occurring? This is when you're torturing the animal. You've got it. This is the anxiety. So this will release adrenaline. In my theory, this releases a superoxide, which is the reactive oxygen species. So you need this and this. You need this and this. If you're just chasing it around, you get adrenaline. So if we want to put it in perspective, you need the stress and the anxiety to get this. So you need both of this taking place. They're probably torturing whoever they're doing this to. This is sort of torture. Now, at least in the animal world, they probably do this quickly and get it over with. But if you assume you torture it more, you're going to get more of this species, more of this, more adrenochrome. So prolonged torture, more stress, more anxiety is going to get you this. So what I want to share with you, everyone, is I think I have a basis for understanding adrenochrome synthesis. And it falls in line with people have been saying they're torturing these kids. This is the big takeaway that you can say that Dr. Shiva just offered you. An explanation for this. An explanation so people don't think you're crazy when you say, well, the torturing releases adrenochrome. So I think I have a basis for this. And I hope this was helpful. And this is the kind of stuff that I will continue to do for you, to take a systems approach to take an attempt at explaining things. This is beyond left or right now. This is molecular systems biology. It's biochemistry. I think we have discovered a chemical basis for what people have been talking about with the fear and the stress. Thank you, everyone. Be the light, be well. Let's win this fight. Thank you.
There has also been encouraging Alzheimer's research using young blood at Stanford.
We found that it was safe and feasible to administer infusions of young plasma weekly.
Dr. Sharon Shaw is a researcher who says they have seen evidence of improvement in functional ability.
It's all very exciting that there can be components in blood that could be healing.
Using a patient's own blood have been in demand as trendy vampire facials to fight wrinkles and as joint and tissue treatments to accelerate healing.
A lot of goodies in blood.
Dr. Houman Khorazani is using those rich PRPs in a study at Mount Sinai to regrow hair.
We can actually use your own blood to stimulate the body.
The study is ongoing, but seeing short-term results, Dr. Khorazani is optimistic.
It looks very positive.
Experts agree there is still more research that needs to be done.
There's still a lot of unknowns and a lot of factors that we don't know when we're actually getting another person's growth factors and nutrient injected in us.
Dr. Karmazin says that he plans to open a young blood lab in New York in the coming months.
All right, I'm gonna get one more, and I'm already 5,000. I went way too long already. This is the book of Nahum, Yahbashim, Barakatah, Barakatham, the brothers on the comment board to you and your household. King Yabasap, GMS Yabasap, Hopeful Elect 777. Subscribe and be edified. Focus on the kingdom, Yahbashim Barakatah, GMS Alabama, King Zion, Yahbashim Barakatah. Shalom, shalom. Let me get this, and I'm already 5,000 because I went way too long. Nick, I am going to do a part 2 to this as well. Nahum chapter 3, verse start at verse 4 through 6. Nahum chapter 3, verse 4 through 6. Because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-fared harlot, America with a triple K, the mistress of witchcrafts, that selleth nations through her whoredoms and families through her witchcrafts. Nahum 3 and 5. Behold, I am against thee, says the Lord Yahweh of hosts. So America with the Most High Yahweh is against America with a triple K. Like I said before, my elder Mawatazak at camp last week said, once again, before the Most High take a nation out, he exposes its wickedness. And America with a triple K is being exposed. I brought out that Habakkuk 2 and 16. America with a triple K, you are filled with shame for glory. Drink you also and let your foreskin be uncovered. I'm in Habakkuk 2 verse 16. The cup of the Lord Yahweh's right hand shall be turned against thee. We just read that in Nahum 3 verse 4. And shameful spewing shall be on your glory. That's what's happening now. Back to Nahum 3 verse 5. Behold, I am against thee, says the Lord Yahweh of hosts, and I will discover thy skirts upon thy face, and I will show the nations your nakedness and the kingdoms your shame. This is your brother Kawas Malak and the brothers on the comment board. This has been, they have been doing this for centuries. I pray the lesson was edifying to the point. Pray for me, I'm praying for you. Kwame Basharala, Raz, Israel. We got next, baby, any day now. Guaranteed, can't wait. Book it. Barakati Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles, elder bishops of Great Millstone that taught me this truth that rule well. Peace and salutation to the whole 144 elect. To the next one, Israel. To you, I say Shalom and Abba Babal DTA. Shalom.